Okay, I see a message from Lucille. I'm sorry. Lucine says she prefers to use the spreadsheet, so we'll make sure you get that, Lucine, okay? And we can mail it out to all council members. You can make a decision which works better for you, either the binder or the Excel. Okay, don't see any other questions. So, yeah, Jamar?
Thank you, Councilor Goodman Hendershitz. If you could please not share that Excel spreadsheet beyond the council body, it's very important. So that you could edit it. We hid things, but we didn't remove everything.
Gotcha.
So there is proprietary data hidden in the spreadsheet, so just please don't share that beyond the body. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a very important part to add. This isn't a public document in that the budget is, but some of the other details in it have information that is within, almost as if you were handling things with executive session. Am I correct, Shamar?
Absolutely, and all substantive updates will be updated to the PDF that is accessible on the city website.
So that rather than us being mailed out to replace pages like we've done old fashioned in the past, it will be on the city website that you can open it up, download it, whatever ways more preferable for you. So, okay, sorry, I had a long day. So this is like second part of my work day. All right, so I'm going to, is Abe on, or will I be turning it to Abe to start, or to you, Jamar?
Abe is on, and the mayor's on as well. I'll get things started.
Okay.
Out for us though this evening. Thank you for that. And thank you, members of council, for joining us this evening and for allowing me to present the 2022 draft budget for the city of Reading. In the front of your budget book, you have a open out summary page of the budget. As of right now, for the general fund, we have a $94.8 million revenue and expenditure budget. It clocks in at $94,786,894. That number, however, is going to be a moving target over the next few weeks as we make it towards December. If you give me a moment to share my screen. I will first walk you through the memo that I sent earlier this afternoon, which provides an overview of the revenue and expenditure drivers, the main changes under the position ordinance, and then we can dive right in to the departmental reviews. Tonight, we have the mayor's office, council clerk, the auditor, and managing director's office, along with the public works department. For this year, our property tax revenues are our largest source of revenue at 27% of the general fund budget. We are looking to restore our projection for prior year collection to our pre-pandemic levels. You'll notice overall an increase of $1,073,522 in additional expected property tax revenue for the 2022 budget. The majority of that increase comes from, as I mentioned, restoring prior year collection to pre-pandemic funding levels, as well as an increase in the value of taxably accessible land here in the city. Next up, the earned income tax revenues. We're keeping that projection flat with a modest increase of $270,000 in prior year collection. We're keeping it flat due to the national as well as local market trends of workers being slow to return to the workforce. So we didn't want to restore that to the pre-pandemic levels. On the real estate transfer tax, based on recent trends and in consultation with our city auditor during the revenue estimating committee, we agreed to increase that projection by $500,000. This year it's budgeted at $4.7 million. For next year, we are budgeting at 5.2 million. It is possible through the end of this process, if council is desirous to increase that further to about 5.5 million in revenue in 2022, I think we would be open to that. Currently, we've received in excess of $6 million in revenue on property transfer tax for the year. Interest and rentals, you'll notice the increase there is reflective of the 3-year agreement that council and the administration negotiated, council approved with the parking authority. Lastly, on the revenue drivers, we've increased our projected use of fund balance by $272,000. It's important to note that in the last at least 8 years, we have used 0 fund balance to actually transfer in and close a budget deficit. On the flip side, and you'll see this in the audit presentation coming up in the next couple of weeks, in 2020, we received, or we achieved rather, a $2.4 million surplus in the general fund. So the use of fund balance, I accentuate the fact that it's a projection, and the reality has been that we haven't needed to tap into that transfer, at least in the last 8 years. Moving to the expenditure side, salary and wage increases across all bargaining units is adding $1.4 million to the budget. That includes the approved increase for police at 4.5%, fire at 3.5%, AFSCME at 4%, and then management at 3.5% in 2022. Additionally, all of our part-time employees have been increased to a minimum wage of $15 per hour. Our debt service payments have increased after the 2020 refinancing that we did for this present year in order to stave off what were projected to be steep revenue losses. Next up, fringe benefits. The cost of health insurance saw a very modest increase of $137,000 over what we were initially expecting back in May. Those figures are not yet included in the budget. We just had that meeting, I believe 2 weeks ago, the day that the budget was presented. So we need a little more time to update those figures. And lastly, operating expenses across the board are mostly flat. And there was actually a slight decrease in operating expenses of about $268,000 versus what we projected to spend last year. On the position ordinance side, the most significant change, I would say, comes through the blockbuster awards won by the Community Development Department. You've heard them mentioned many times already, the Advancing Health Literacy and Lead Abatement Awards, both federal. These will include 3 new temporary positions to reflect the lead abatement grant under the Property Maintenance Division of CD. Under the HUD division of CD, you'll notice 4 new positions reflecting the health literacy grant. And then we've also restored the deputy director position under community development to help with all of the day-to-day activity and administration across all of their activities. I will pause there for questions as we begin the reviews. One more thing of note on your summary sheet, the initial summary page that you received, the numbers for 2021 are not accurate. There were some adjustments that needed to be made. We made the majority of them today. So you'll see on the spreadsheet here, it's only showing a surplus. Sorry. It's currently showing a surplus under 21 of 13,000. We need to make a few more adjustments to get that to balance. And then we'll be ready for you to reprint this and put this document to replace the one in your budget book.
Okay, any questions? I see Johanny.
Quick question. So I noticed obviously there's an increase in salary and wages. However, there's a decrease in fringe benefits. And for some reason, I thought that as salary increases, so do the fringe benefits.
Yeah, so that's what I just noted. That line is not accurate, the fringe benefit line. It will be updated in the next coming weeks, in the next couple days, rather, I should say.
Thank you, Jamar. And just, just for, I'm sure it's a typo, but the cover page has you listed as Director of Administrative Services. And I know that position no longer exists because we broke up the department. And also, the executive management, is this everyone on the executive management team? Because I thought we had some women and I don't see them represented on here.
This is not everyone. This is just the main department directors, police, fire, public works, community development, human resources, and the solicitor.
Okay, just making sure that we acknowledge everyone who's a director. Like I said, it's like heavily male dominated. I know we have some women directors, so just putting it out there. Thank you.
We do. In the initial one, I left off Ida. My apologies, Ida. She's in the update that I'm looking at right now. We also missed Bronwyn as well, and I apologize to Bronwyn. We'll edit and fix that as well.
I'm going to make a comment that I feel I need to make. I believe that some of the oversights can't be attributed to a specific reason. They are just oversights, and we have to accept that as we edit it, when we move on, it's all in good faith working together as a team. Okay, anyone else have any questions?
Maria, I think.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, and I apologize because you're screen sharing. I need to scroll down up and down the list. So Maria?
That's okay. Thank you, Marsha. By reviewing the position ordinance, I noticed some discrepancy, not discrepancies, maybe some adjustment need to be made to some of the salary line item for some of the employees. Like for the project manager under the accounting department, that person was making $54,386. That was a steep pattern. And now I see that they budgeted $58,652 plus the 3.5% is going to be $60,705. So that position had an increase of $4,265, which is above the 3% for the personal codes we approved. So that needs to be approved by council, I guess. So it was never, I never saw that has been approved by council, the increase in that position. Also the position.
Maria, would you just slow down a second?
Can you make
yeah.
The position for the project accounting manager under the accounting department, that position.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you tell me what position ordinance are you referring to? What page is it so that I can follow?
The first page under the accounting department.
And what line is that on, Maria?
That would be 0106134900. Project
4900.
manager.
Okay, gotcha.
Maria, are you able to make a list of all of these position ordinance issues that you've identified?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I noticed a few, like for the chief of police, for the deputy chief, their salary had increased and it was not changed in here. Just to mention a few.
Please.
That's very good, Maria. Thank you.
That would be super helpful.
Yeah. And I think for anyone else that has any of those items, we will try to document as many as we can, but it doesn't hurt to follow through with an email, just so we're all clear on where you might have had questions, where you think things need to be added. Johanny?
Is it possible, just so that we're all on the same page, that we go through, I mean, I thank you, Jamar, for like the brief overview, right? Are we going to be expected to go line item by line item? So then when these position ordinances come up, we can reflect them accordingly with each department that we're reviewing? I just want to understand what process we're going to follow as of today moving forward.
Can I clarify that, Johanny? Because it will be similar to the process last year. What we're starting at, if you look at the agenda, is just an overview of the revenues and expenditures. Then we'll be breaking it down into every single department. So we'll drill down further. So this is just the beginning overview. Every single line item will have an opportunity to discuss as that department's being presented. Does that
And
help answer your question?
yes, I just, because Maria brings up some great points, and I'm looking at, I mean, I see discrepancies even in salaries versus positions, qualifications, et cetera. So I see some people in certain positions making more than other people with credentials and qualifications. So I just want to make sure that salaries are matching qualification, job title, and so on and so forth. I want to understand how that math gets done.
I mean, there is not nobody there right now in the accounting department for the project manager. But the person who was there, he used to make 54, and now I see that they budgeted 58.6, so.
Jamar, did you have a comment?
Yes. So our traditional process is to review positions after we review the expenditures and revenues for that department. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Right now, respectfully, we're off topic.
Thank you. Yeah, we need to remember that the agenda is set up for a certain process. That is that we do the overview first and then we drill down. And if we try to drill down to everything in the beginning, it would turn into complete chaos. That's not what we want to have happen. So that's why it's important for you to know your questions. And when it comes time for it to be discussed, we will address it. Okay? Thanks. Okay, is there anyone else? I'm just scrolling down through my list that has any questions.
Marcia, I posed a question through the chat. I thought it might be easier.
Yeah. Okay,
And-
I see. Go on.
It could be answered today, or it could be added to the Excel because it's really more of an overall strategy. As we start to go through departments and we start to see where the position ordinance is going to vary. I know that there's a need to build the capacity in probably every single department of the city. And so how will we kind of project that financially, the impact in the next couple of years as we exit Act 47? Because, I don't want to discourage departments to put forth what's needed and for it to be suggested to us. But, I imagine that the floodgates could open and every department's going to be asking for what they need. So just an overall strategy question for the position ordinance to the administration.
Okay, and go on, Jamar.
So for 2022, Counselor, in response to that immediate question, our strategy is how can we do more without a tax increase? That was the guiding philosophy. And that's why we're only able to first bring on the positions that are grant funded, which is a bit out, which we're not being held against the cap per se because they're temporary positions. And there is no requirement for the question Linda to retain those positions after the grant period ends. That only happens with the SAFER grant for firefighters. I think I answered both of those the best that I could. Beyond that, though, generally I share the concern of the floodgates potentially opening. That is buttressed by the lack of general appetite for tax increase. So without a tax increase to pay for more positions, you can't just go creating additional positions without the pay fors. So that anxiety is tempered.
Yeah, I appreciate that response. We've been practicing, severe austerity, I believe, because we've been forced to. But now that our hand is not forced, I can foresee that the administration is going to work through, a strategy like the one that you mentioned to kind of keep things in place in that bay as everybody comes forward with the need. because clearly there's a need, we've all addressed it. And, you know, your start with the approach of grant funded positions to increase the capacity is a good one. You know, and slowly, hopefully, and surely we can build that without increasing, you know, increasing the tax again now. Perhaps there might be other strategies to help with that and see some revenue generated in a way that we can use that also. So thanks.
Certainly.
Okay. Go on, Jamar.
Starting out at the Office of the Mayor, you will find rather, under salaries, there's no significant increase there. Those management adjustments reflect the percentage increase for management employees, rather, I should say. On the operations side, there's a decrease in advertising. Contracted services remains flat, conferences and training flat, and pretty much the remainder of their expenditure lines, general plant supplies, travel, and then community promotions all remain flat.
Jamar, just a second though, just to be referencing for everyone, we're in tab 2 if you're looking at your binder.
Yes, my apologies.
That's okay.
Switching over to the position listing. And let me just increase the size here. We have Mayor Moran, we have his executive assistant, we have a special assistant in the mayor's office, and then we have the chief of staff in the mayor's office, 4 positions. Any questions there? Moving on, we have the city council office, which includes the city clerk's office. The salary adjustments there reflect a 3.5% increase for management employees. Council remaining flat, advertising remaining flat. The contracted services line that we did this year for interpreter services has been reduced by 15,000 in 2022. To the best of my knowledge, there's been no activity on that line this year. Printing and the codified ordinances that we do remains flat. Legal services, the increase here is reflective of the council solicitor. That's been budgeted at 50,000, an increase of 45,000 over the prior year. All of the remaining lines, fees, conferences and training, dues, maintenance agreements, all are remaining flat. And community promotions also remaining the same over the prior year. If there are no immediate questions on the position listing, council members remain flat, and then the 3 full-time employees under the office would receive 3.5% management increases.
And I believe there will be some questions on this. Donna, I see you shaking your head. Do you have a question?
Well, we've had initial conversations with the administration regarding bringing on a part-time consultant for the 275th starting next year. And that would fall under the council office to alleviate the stress on the mayor's office. That's something we need to discuss. There'll be a job description, things like that. But certainly we look at that for what would be spent, the revenue coming back to the city and the promotion of the city would be significant. So that's for further discussion down the road, but that position might be reflected then on the councilmanic side of the budget.
So there's 2 ways to reflect that, Counselor, under consulting services as a line item operationally, or if you're angling for some sort of internal part-time or full-time position. But if you're just doing a consultant, that will be reflected as an operational cost.
Okay, because I think both the administration and the council members and the auditor on the steering committee for the 275th were in agreement it would go to a consultant status. Correct me if I'm wrong, Maria or Marcia.
When we had the discussions, we had come to a consensus that it would be a consultative position. We're looking at the amount that needed to be budgeted and also working on the description, the scope of work for the consultant.
So it sounds like there's no ballpark figure to insert as of yet.
We may have one perhaps in the next week. Marcia, Linda, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Okay.
May I, just a quick question, have we had a similar type position in the past in which we could look at what was allocated for something like this? A consultant for helping to plan an event, I guess is what I'm understanding this is.
Mhm.
So, you know, have we had that in the past?
We
Right.
did in 1998, and we did for many, many years from the pagoda standpoint, that there was a person who dovetailed as a pagoda manager and special events person. And that for many years was a full-time position, correct, Marcia?
It started that way, then it changed into a
Decreased,
consultant.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And it also decreased. So there was a template for that. There were job responsibilities. I don't want to call it a job because it was really more of a consultant, but we have that to reflect back on. But this isn't the first time that this has come up as a possible need for the city.
Mhm.
And I want to reflect on the fact that it will produce income. So there will most likely be income to offset the expenses.
And we may also be able to look at some kind of grant funding through some local organizations and perhaps state. So, you know, that hopefully can offset it as well.
Okay. I'm scrolling down again. Are there any other questions? Johanny?
Will then the city council solicitor, shouldn't that be reflected on the position ordinance?
No, Counselor, I said that's identified under legal services.
Have we made that determination? Because I wasn't sure if we decided what the agreement was gonna be in terms of part-time benefits, et cetera.
I mean, when you all decide, we can make an adjustment, yeah, but right now it's reflected under legal services.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, if you go back to, I don't know if you noticed this, I know you're gonna be correcting the fringes and so on, but in the mayor's office, if you look at 2020 versus 2022, there's a difference, right? 5,689, but look at the fringe line item, just so that you can see the major discrepancy. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And this is why this is a process, because we know we're going to find areas that need to be changed. And I think it's good that the people are pointing out what needs to be. We have as many sets of eyes on this as possible. So it's, you know, good when we're able to do that. The other thing that I'm doing on my Excel spreadsheet, whenever you make a question, I'm highlighting it in yellow to know that I can go back and there was a question about that and annotate what the question was. Okay, any other questions on, oh, okay, Johanna, go ahead.
Sorry, you know, I always ask these questions. As it relates to salary increases, how do we determine 3.5? Is that the cost of living allowance, or, because I know we haven't done performance evaluations. I know they're scheduled to begin in the new year, but since I've been on board, I know I've been asking about performance evaluations, how you determine increases for people.
So the figure was chosen based on, I would say, a happy medium of what's been approved already for police, fire, and AFSCME. So fire received 3.5, police 4.5, AFSCME 4. So it seemed fair to ask for a minimum of 3.5 for management. If you would like to increase it to 4%, though.
And the reason why I also ask is because I know that throughout the year, we've had increases based on additional responsibilities and so on and so forth. So just trying to figure out how formulas are created to determine the increases?
So we built on the initial formula that was authorized under the Act 47 exit plan, which was 2, 2.5, 3 in 20, 21, and then 22. And as you have noticed, based on the additional, based on some flexibility under that exit plan, police were able to achieve 4.5 instead of 3. Fire was able to achieve 3.5 instead of the 3. And AFSCME as well. So it seemed only appropriate to ask for at least 3.5 for the management employees in 22.
And one last one, I promise. So I recall last year, in order to support salary increase, we had to raise taxes. I know it started off as a higher amount, we were able to reduce it. How are we sustaining these increases?
Through projected use of fund balance, as I mentioned. So the tax that you approved for last year is still into effect this year. So we still have that additional revenue coming in. And anything above that, we will close the projected deficit with use of fund balance. So switching back to the summary tab, in 2021, our projected use of fund balance was $2,255,136. In 2022, our projected use of fund balance is $2,400,044. So that's an increase of $144,908 in use of fund balance over the previous year, or over the current year, I should say.
Then it appears, and I don't know if this is just how it's supposed to look, but it appears that we're starting off the year in a deficit.
We're not.
What does
What
that mean at the
is
bottom,
that?
the parentheses?
This is last year's transfer from fund balance.
I'm looking at the very bottom where it says grant fund surplus deficit.
Oh, general fund surplus deficit. So the projected deficit in 2022 would be $2.4 million. That's why we are transferring in fund balance $2.4 million to close what is projected to be a deficit of 2.4 million.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Let me ask you one question, and this is to the body. A lot of times abbreviations are used so that the GF means general fund. I don't know whether there's any other times that if you have any questions about what the abbreviations might mean, feel free to ask them. So we're all on the same page and understanding what's being referenced.
And I'll try not to overuse acronyms.
I know,
So
it's hard.
for purposes of record keeping, Linda, in the parking lot, I did highlight consulting services 275. So once a figure is identified, we can plug that number in and it'll be reflected there in the council budget. Moving on to the auditor's office.
Sorry, Jamar, I have my hand up, but I
I'm
will,
sorry.
nope, that's okay. So overall, as we start to comb through these, specifically for the clerk's office, I'm not seeing anything reflected on the needs or resources in which, we experience having to navigate through COVID. Whether it's hybrid meetings, technology, trainings, extra hours, things like that. I don't know if Linda wants to speak to that and looking at the budget and how it was formed, or if there's an overall, if that's things, additional resources or time. As we move into the future, I don't see that things are going to go back to the way they were. So, are there any areas in which we need to build that into our budget by department, or is that landing somewhere else?
So in response to that, if you remember, council approved an upgrade to the chambers. That is actually being paid out of the IT budget. not the council budget. We didn't do any transfers or anything. In terms of reflecting any sort of annual cost related to that, like what Granicus had, we left under maintenance agreements, this is row 56, we left 30,000 in to cover any potential costs related to the technology that Linda uses. But Linda, if there's anything else, please don't let me speak for you.
Yeah, that's covered somewhere else. Where is it? Yeah, there's another area in the budget. I'm not seeing it right now. But it covers the streaming service and council chambers and the maintenance.
Okay, so mostly, Linda, IT related, tech related.
Yeah, right. IT covers the Zoom expense also.
Mm-hmm. And then we had Zoom accounts set up for council, but I don't know that those were utilized or if that would be continued.
If what would be continued?
I think council, you had established Zoom logins for council members or one generally for council, is that correct?
Yeah, originally, but it wasn't being used that much. So Ken asked to take that back and assign it to another employee who needed it.
Okay. And anything else for the clerk's office, not related to IT that you experienced, you know, having to navigate and do your job through what we've just experienced?
No, not anything that costs the city money.
I do have a question, Linda. I see that, and it was explained why the interpreter expenses were eliminated because there wasn't any billable services. But I'm wondering whether that's more COVID driven than there actually may be a need for that once we are back in a hybrid situation in council chambers. Any thoughts at all?
I think 25,000 annually is a little aggressive.
Okay.
We did use it one time for a blighted property hearing.
Okay. So the 10,000 would be sufficient then?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Marcia, you kind of used the word eliminated. We didn't eliminate it. We just decreased it.
Yeah, I apologize. You are correct. Okay, anyone else with any questions? We have gone through the auditors.
Counselor Jahani has her hand up.
Okay, sorry. Johanny?
And it's related to your point, Marcia, about the interpreting services. I mean, I'm hoping that as we move back into council chambers with all the necessary upgrades, that we can integrate some type of language for people to follow our meetings. So I'm not sure if 10,000 will be enough for that app or whatever it is that we can utilize while we're back in council chambers. Whether it's headsets that people can put in their ear while meeting is going, and you know, the meeting is being translated into people's ears at the meeting. I mean, I've seen all during COVID, during this pandemic, I've seen all different kinds of interpreting and translating services. So
Well,
just
the
want to put it out
problem-
there, I don't see a contingency line item in our budget that maybe could lend itself for us to tap into if needed.
When we're doing in-person meetings, it's odd if we have more than 2 people sitting in the audience, A. B, that was one of the reasons I enabled the closed captioning on Facebook. You know, so that's happening now for people that are looking at it that way. And to do it on Zoom, you would need to physically have someone sitting there that could type in Spanish while the talking's going on. And I think that would be outrageously expensive.
What I
I've
think,
seen it happen. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I was in a Make the Road meeting where they had an interpreter in the meeting, and the interpreter was on the meeting, so she would be with her headset speaking directly to people in their respective language while the meeting is going on. So it wouldn't be typing; they'd just be speaking. And this group that selects the language would be listening in that language. So that's just
Right.
an example. I'm not saying anything we have to do immediately, but something to just keep, in our radar.
I
If
think it's
if I'm,
important. Go on, Mayor.
if I may, I believe that I agree with Johanny that we had set 25,000 last year in the hopes that maybe we could either rent or obtain apparatus that would assist in language translations. I know the school district has the equipment. I think our thinking last year was as more people get engaged in our community I understand that currently maybe 2 or 3 people show up, but as when we go back, I think a lot more interest has shown because people have started to get more involved. I think overall, generally, the whole community. It would only be appropriate that we have in the event that we need it, the funding to either buy that equipment that it allows people to translate to others in the audience, like similar to when we go on excursions. People put on a headset and an individual is speaking to the crowd. So that's something that might, necessity in the future.
And I guess to summarize what I'm hearing, I think we should be mindful of what our needs are. And as they emerge and we can identify technologies, we need to invest in that to be able to communicate the clearest way we need to. So it may not be just in the council office, but I think it's across the board, how we use the appropriate technology to offer translating services. Okay. I think we're ready to move on, Jamar.
Thank you, Counselor. Under the city auditor's office, I have not yet made the pending change for the auditing coordinator position. So let's just go ahead and do that now. And I'm not supposed to hard code things. For the city auditor's office, you will see an increase in the salary line reflecting the pending legislation before council. And hopefully I'm not getting ahead of my skis. There is 5,000 requested for legal services, 1,200 for conferences and training, 300 for office supplies. And that is it for the auditor's office. Any questions there? Please, Maria.
Yeah, thank you, Jamar. Jamar, when you did the budget request and I provided you the information and I did ask for an increase in the line item for the legal services. Being the city auditor independent office, I want to increase that line item at least to $10,000 because this office is going to be doing a lot more work and I probably going to be looking for outside legal counsel in case there is a conflict of interest with our solicitor. I already spoke to our solicitor and he recommended me to do that as well.
Have you spent any of the 5,000 budgeted for this
Not
year?
this year, but I want to be, for next year. And that's why I want to increase that my idle due to, I just want to be proactive. So I don't want to run, for legal, when you're asking for legal services, you know how the fee it is. Any lawyer we charge you at least $250 an hour. So I'm not saying that I will spend the money if I don't need it, but I just want to have it just in case. And I would like to ask council, if they can.
Yeah, I would leave that one to council. We can certainly add it
If they can, they can approve that for the city auditor's office.
Yeah, I have that noted, Maria.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other for the auditor? Okay, Jamar, we can move on.
Moving on, we have
Marcia, I
the,
have my hand up. I don't know if you can see it. Well, my physical hand, not the,
I'll tell you what's happened, because he's sharing screen, I can't see everyone. So go on, Johanny, I apologize.
okay. Just for a point of clarity, so as I'm looking at your spreadsheet, Jamar, and I'm looking at the binder, yeah, there's a difference. Did you just add the $5,000 to 2022?
yes, I just did it while we were all here. Yes,
For 2021 or 2022?
for 2022.
Okay. And then, go ahead.
I added to the salary line for the auditing coordinator position.
Yeah, just because the numbers in my binder look a little different than the numbers I'm looking at on the screen.
Yes,
all.
that's because I just changed it in real time.
All right, because even the 2021, like I have 114,750. You have 114,250. So I'm not sure which one is the most accurate one.
At the top of the presentation, I mentioned we have a lot of adjustments to make for 2021.
Okay.
Those figures aren't entirely accurate in this Excel document.
So what will be accurate is the Excel spreadsheet, not the binder, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Always. Yes.
Okay, and then as far as Maria's request, oh, go ahead.
And then we're going to reprint
said-
this at the end of the process. No, I just said we're going to
Okay.
print
As
this
far-
Excel at the end of the process so that you
At
have
the
a
end.
fully accurate copy.
Okay. Beautiful, thank you. As far as Maria's request, is that something that can be allocated to the contingencies line item? Because I see that in 2020, we had allocated 2,000 and then we removed it for this year and we have nothing allocated for the future.
Yeah, so that
That-
contingency was a one-time thing. That's not something we
Okay.
typically do.
And I don't think that's really we matter, because if I don't spend the money will stay there in the legal fee, and it will go back to the general fund at the end of the year, or
That's true, but to be clear, we will have to increase the projected use of fund balance in order to accommodate any additional request at this point.
yes, yeah, that's true.
And I think that's what we'll see happening throughout the process. As we give and take in each of these line items, the fund balance will be adjusted.
Absolutely, Counselor. Coming over to the managing director's office. One change of note under part-time wages. There is an intern in the managing director's office that started under the communications coordinator. Excuse me, I feel like I need to belch. That person started in the second half of this year. The managing director is desirous of keeping that position for next year. So we are fully funding the part-time person for communications at $19,500 for the year. That's the $15 per hour minimum wage that we discussed. Under conferences and training, minor reduction there to 3,000, making that flat. Fees, dues, office supplies are all remaining flat. There's a slight uptick in media supplies reflective of the great work that Christian does. And then minor capital and travel are remaining flat. On the salary side, the increase there, as you can see, 3.4% is reflective of the management level increases. Switching over to the position listing, you have the managing director at full-time, communications coordinator full-time, special assistant full-time, and then the communications intern aforementioned. And that should reflect 19.5.
Okay, any questions here? Johanny?
Jamar, I don't see it listed on the position ordinance.
What's that?
The intern, the part-time, huh? There's no amount.
Yeah, I just
Okay, so I'm
corrected
looking
that.
at my spreadsheet.
Right, I also noticed the
Okay.
same thing. It wasn't reflected there and I just typed it in.
All right, and then that's not, then in the union column, it says management. That's incorrect, right?
It's really not applicable. It should say not applicable.
Okay. All right. So you'll fix that. Awesome.
Are we good on the managing director's office?
I hope so.
Excuse me. Moving on to public works, just give me 1 second.
Tamar,
Yes, Counselor Zelnick.
sorry, so I may have missed this, I'm sorry. The communications coordinator position is in which department?
The managing director's office,
Okay, they're both housed there. I just want to make sure of that. Thank you.
coordinator and intern, yes.
Both, okay, but it won't be an intern, right? There's gonna be a part-time commission, or is it a paid intern? I'm
It's a-
a little confused.
It's a part-time employee, providing communication support. I don't want to improperly use the word intern.
So there will be the communications coordinator, which is a full-time position, which is already in the managing director's department. And then there will be a part-time communications assistant
Yes,
in
ma'am.
that same department.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Just
you have a
just
question?
to clarify, I'm sorry, I used intern and part-timer interchangeably because they're both classified the same here at the city, and they both make the same thing. I'm sorry, Marcia.
Okay, and just a clarification on the job description of the communications coordinator. I think communication comes from different parts of the city government, from both council as well as from the mayor's office. So if there was some way that we could be expanding that job description to be able to look at support that the council office might need in terms of communication.
To the best of my understanding, you can always send those things to the managing director's office, and he
Okay.
and Christian always responds.
Okay. I just felt that needed to be noted because I think that sometimes maybe, and I think it's more on the council, there's that need to be able to learn to utilize the communications director services. There's many things that might happen within our districts that I think could merit some assistance in that way.
I mean, I know we've even had the Pagoda Foundation reach out, and he responds to things.
Yeah. And actually, that's a real good example of the strong collaboration that occurred very successfully. So in other ways, we might want to consider that.
Feel free to
Donna?
reach out to me directly and we can go from there. Not a problem.
Okay. And Donna first and then Johanny.
And I think, dovetailing on that, I think of things coming up with, planning commission, zoning board, when there are issues coming up in different neighborhoods, to make the public aware of them, that they might comment one way or another, significant things like that. Hopefully those departments can also start thinking in terms of reaching out to the communications director to say that, here's something happening in District 5 that may be of concern, and it's happening on this particular night at the zoning board or something like that. So, all the great work Christian's doing, especially with an assistant, there's probably some more, as noted, that could be done to help city communications. So hopefully other, in addition to council, the different departments will consider that.
Okay, thank you. And Johanny?
Yeah, I'm just curious if there's a particular reason why we are jumping into public works and not keeping in order with the binder layout.
Because it's the schedule that has been sent around and agreed to, Counselor.
Oh, I didn't agree to it. I just received the agenda. Sorry. I didn't understand why it was set up that way. I mean, that's typically what happens. I get the agenda like everybody else.
Yeah, and then you can respond to it if you would have any questions, but I think sometimes what we do is piece things together according to the amount of time it might take, what we can fit in a 2-hour meeting. So it never has sequentially followed what's in the binder. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, but Public Works is like a huge department versus HR, Director of Finance. We can probably get through those rather quickly versus Public Works. It's huge. Like, I
Yeah,
feel like
Public Works
we
is
need dedicated
actually broken
time just for
down.
Public Works.
Yeah. When you look at the Public Works agenda, what we have is not the whole Public Works, it's broken down. So. And we will probably be modifying the agenda as we move along as needed. Because there are times we don't get everything covered that we plan to. So is everyone okay with us moving ahead with the components of Public Works that are on the agenda? Okay,
Thank you, Counselor. So the Public Works tab is going to be tab 9 in your binders, page 11. Starting with the city garage.
and what line item are we on in the spreadsheet, Jamar?
It's row 317.
Okay, thank you.
So starting with the city garage as a division, the salaries are reflective of the contractual increases. We have overtime budgeted to remain flat. Fleet maintenance is going up by 5,000 over the previous year to 20,000 in 2022. Contracted services has also gone up by 5,000 from 157 in present year to 162 for next year. Conferences and training has gone up by 1,000, reflective of a new certification that's required. Small engine repairs has gone up by 10,000 over the current year to 40. Maintenance and repairs remains flat. Vehicle supplies has gone up by 5,000 to reflect increases in pricing. Gasoline similarly increases in consumer price index. We have tires and tubes going up by 5,000. General repair parts remaining flat at $145,900. Uniforms remaining flat, or actually no, uniforms increased by 500 to $4,500. General plant supplies remains flat at 2. Nope, there was a slight increase there of 500, my apologies. Small tools under the garage also received an increase of 2,000. But repairs to damaged property remain flat at 50,000. On the position listing under garage, no significant changes there outside of, as I mentioned, the contractual 4% increase for 2021 and 2022. Any questions for the garage division? Moving right along, we have traffic and engineering.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Please.
Johanna?
So I'm looking at the position ordinance, right? And you have engineer division manager, but there's no money allocated there.
We're,
And maybe I should be looking at your spreadsheet.
yeah, we haven't,
In
we're
public,
under garage. We're under the garage division, Counselor. City garage, that's going to be page 11. The first page of the Public Works tab. Oh, you're under the
Okay, gotcha.
position, but yeah, we haven't gotten to positions.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Anything on garage? Okay. Under traffic and engineering, light and power remains flat at 100,000. Street lighting, so this is literally the expense for the streetlights, we're projecting an increase by 100,000. Contracted services remains flat at 100,000. Consulting services has gone up by 20,000. Maintenance and repairs under traffic has gone up by 15,000. Repairs to traffic signals has decreased by 15,000. Repairs to street lighting has gone up by 15,000. And then repairs to sign and paint is remaining flat at 28,000. There's a net increase for the traffic engineering office of 135,000 over the current year. We, again, on the position side, these are all union positions that would have received the 4% increase for 2021 and 2022. Any questions on traffic? Public Works admin. You'll notice the 3.8% there is reflective of contractual increases, not contractual, apologies, management level increases. The contracted services line remains flat at 130,000 for PW admin. Consulting services has an increase of 50,000 under PW admin to 250,000. The Environmental Advisory Council remains flat at $500. Stadium Commission remains flat. Sustainability Office remains flat at 100,000. Conferences and training has ticked up by 1,500 to 6,500. Dues has gone down to 2,000. Office supplies and general plant remain flat at 600. On the position listing, no significant changes there. I think Councilor Cepeda Freitas, this is where you were asking the question about the engineering division manager. So that position is funded out of a different department. It's reflected administratively and on row 107 of the spreadsheet. If you jump down, Stan, which division is that?
Excuse me, my dog was barking. She would be in the sewer fund. A little further down. I can't, I'm sorry, I can't read it. It would be in the next. Where do we see her? Environmental. Mike Schrader. Hans Bach. I don't see it right there. It should, we'll get that. Can you scroll down, please? A little more. Scroll down, please. Where's Ann? I don't see her. If you keep running,
Flag that one. We'll flag that one for follow-up.
Okay. I'll follow that up.
Thank you, Counselor, for pointing that one out. Were there any others that stood out to you?
Now, the positions that are not being filled, which appears that they weren't filled in 2020, are we just gonna eliminate those lines altogether, or?
No, not necessarily. So for some positions, we want to preserve, one second, sorry. We maintain a placeholder, if you will, so that it could be brought back in the future. For example, the deputy director in community development was not funded this year. We left it as a line, and then next year we're bringing that one back. So similarly, although engineer 2, engineer 4 is not being filled now, in the future, to Counselor Sahelnick's point, once we're ready to specify where we're going to expand our capacity, we would be able to bring a position back that previously existed. So that's why we don't just delete them. We italicize them and we drop in $0 for funding.
Got it. And then just for a point of clarity, the deputy director and project manager, obviously, I'm going to assume that his position is being paid for by a different code? I don't-
Yes, this position is paid for by the CIP fund,
Capital improvement.
Capital Improvement Fund.
And that's reflected on here somewhere?
Yeah, right here. So row 118. You're on mute.
Yeah, I don't see that on my sheet. It's okay.
It's, so if you're in the Public Works admin section, that should definitely be there.
Yeah.
And if I may, Jamar, I have Deb Hoag's position. And a little further down in sanitary source, utility manager is where she would be placed.
There we go.
There you go. That's Deb Hoag. And she's paid entirely out of the utilities sanitary sewer fund.
Thank you for catching that, Counselor, and thank you, Stan, for
Absolutely.
identifying it. Maria, please.
Thank you. I had a question for those positions who are currently vacant. If you are starting a new employee after January 1st, 2022, they will be at the current salary, but they not will be able to get a raise. How that's going to play out? They will start at the salary with a new rate.
For union positions, they would start at the new rate. For non-union positions, we have some flexibility to create a range there. But the trend is to go with what is budgeted,
Thank you.
certainly.
Johanna, I have a question to ask and then I'll reference to you. Question, Jamar, is that with some of these vacant positions, is there any way to annotate that they're just being placeholders so that they appear somewhere in the document? Well, I'm just trying to look at if anyone would have any questions and need to have reference. Would that work at all?
I mean, so vacant positions are labeled vacant positions that are not being filled. We don't have vacant listed. And since we're in this section, point of personal privilege. So Maria, earlier on, you were highlighting the issue of the project accountant position, okay? Formerly Steve Patton. That position is actually covered here at what was budgeted, 54 and then 56. I think you were confusing the former revenue manager position.
No, in the binder that I have, and I can share that with you, that's what it say. It was budgeted at 58,000.
Yeah, no, project accountant right here, row 736. That position is currently vacant and it's posted. That's budgeted
it
at
right.
54,000 in 2021. Do you see it there?
I have it right here, 58,000.
That's from the binder, Maria.
Yes.
Okay.
And what section are you looking in?
What tab?
Again, so she's looking at the accounting tab. It was
Mhm.
formerly the revenue manager position. I have reclassified it as a project manager going forward, which
Yes,
is our current needs. It's the same salary that was budgeted. There's no change there.
but maybe, I don't know. So I don't know what to tell you because the number that
Oh,
I
I do
have
know.
here is 58,000. I didn't change that number.
I think you need to have internal discussion, just so everyone's looking at the same documents.
Yeah, we happy to have that discussion, but I've been quite clear on what I presented. So we covered PW admin.
Well, Jahani still had an outstanding question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And
Jahani?
just so that I'm following the conversation regarding project accountant and project manager in the accounting division, is that the issue? Because
Yeah.
under the WWTP, the project accountant, which is listed as a vacant position, there's no money allocation on my sheet.
Yes, so that
Okay.
position is reflected in 2 locations. Okay, it's reflected in the accounting office because that's where they're stationed. It's paid out of Fund 54. That's
So,
where-
but
so
there's no money on there either. So
Yeah, Counselor, there is. I just showed you.
show me again, please.
Project accountant. Actually, no, it's not supposed to be there. It's here.
Whoa. Okay.
Project accountant vacant. 53 in 2020, 54 in 2021, 56 in 2022. Got me?
Yep, I follow. Thank you. On my sheets, it's just blank. So thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, any other questions before we continue? Okay, Jamar?
Yes, I'm sorry, just 1 second, please.
Sure.
Engineering, we don't actually track any cost there, just OPEB for, I believe, 1 retiree. Under highways, we have overtime remaining flat. We have snow overtime costs remaining flat. We have part-time wages, which needs to get adjusted to 19,005. No advertising budgeted. Contracted services went up by 10,000 to 55,000 for next year. Consulting services went up by 5,000 to 30,000 for next year. The remaining of the expenditure lines are flat with the exception of minor capital equipment, saw a decrease of 3,000. And then machinery and equipment saw a decrease of $60,700. Overall, for the highways division, they did see a decrease of 41,000 to their budget. On the position side of highways, I believe we already covered that one. There were no changes other than the contractual obligations for the rank and file.
Any questions here? Again, we're under highways. Okay. Jahani?
Just for, I don't know if this is anything we can fix now, maybe moving forward, but I would really appreciate, right? I understand that this is laid out in alphabetical order, but it would be great if like the Public Works Department, both the accounting, the position ordinance, if it was all like under one big category. And I say this because I have to look through sheets for the position ordinances for all the categories under public works, they're like not in sequential order, right? So it would just be helpful if public works was, or anything pertaining to public works is like under one complete section, regardless of the alphabet, because everything is like in some type of alphabetical order. Am I making sense?
Yes, and yes.
Because notice how you have to scroll up and down, and
I think you're missing an index. That's what I don't see.
I very well might be, because I have all these sheets.
I mean, I don't have one either. I'm not seeing an index in mine. Maybe I
Table of
missed.
contents at the beginning of the budget book, you know?
No, I don't have that.
Yeah, my book is missing like that.
Yeah,
index
I don't have that either.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there is no table of contents for the
No.
tabs,
And that's what's confusing.
right?
Yeah, I don't have one. I definitely don't.
Yeah, so I apologize if I'm coming across as frustrated, but I am very frustrated. It's like going
And
back
I-
and forth, really trying to figure this out.
I understand everyone's frustrations. This is not, how can I say, it, the maximum type of setting that you can get this done in, because we're all on different pages and literally, and it takes time. And I think what's happening is we're trying to go through a lot of data in a very quick way, which the administration is familiar with, but for us as council, we're looking at it for the first time. So I think we need to give ourselves time and patience to be able to all get to where we need to be. And
And I
I'm looking at actually 2 documents, trying to correlate them. So let's just take a deep breath and say, it's going to take time to figure out where we are.
And
take
I
time for.
understand, Marcia, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but like, because
Well,
we're
you did interrupt
part-time,
me, but
that
that's
has to be
okay.
taken into consideration so that our time is valued, right? Because we are
Mhm.
part-time, and I'm really trying to do the best job I can possible
Yeah.
for our taxpayers. So I would like that to be taken into account.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but we had these books printed at Rikes. I know for a fact that every single book has a table of contents.
Mine doesn't.
Mine doesn't either, Jamar.
It absolutely doesn't. I guarantee you.
Yeah, I'm going through all the beginning pages that lead up to tab 1, and I don't see a table of contents either. So it's, could be something that was an oversight when they put together the binders. So if there's any way that we can all get a copy of the table of contents, so when we go through it,
Yeah, just send it.
yeah, just email it to us. Do we all have the capability of printing it out?
Yeah,
Okay. Donna, you had a comment?
I do. And I realize all the constraints we're under and COVID and everything, and I respect it. I find this really hard to do via Zoom. I don't know if
agree.
there's any possible way we can do this meeting at City Hall and make sure that we have it streamed, that the public can see it. We've been through these iterations many times, Marcia, you and I, and Jeff, we're the longest serving. And it really has been helpful, and Strat, excuse me, it really has been very much more helpful to be there sitting together, to have that projected in front of us that we can all speak together. Marcia, I don't know if there's anything that can be done, but I'm just respectfully asking if that could be considered.
I agree with that.
I agree.
The 3rd floor conference room can easily accommodate that.
I think that's what I would prefer that we do it that way too, moving ahead. Is there any council members that wouldn't be able to come to a in-person? Well, yeah, Strat, you're already in person. We just moved the location. I think the administration needs to let us know if that would not be possible starting next week.
I do believe that the 3rd floor conference room would be not just accessible, but yields plenty of space and opportunity, and has a technical aspects to share with the public as well. So I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
Okay.
Actually, the 3rd floor conference room is not available next Monday. The electrical examining board has it reserved for a hearing.
Okay, I was referring to the budget meetings, not necessarily the committee of the whole or the council meetings, but that is useful to know. Thank you.
Yeah, but we do have the budget meeting with every Monday as well.
Right.
So understood. Okay.
Counselor, sorry.
No, that's okay, Jamar. I just want to chime in. I couldn't, for me, I would like to keep the option to have, hybrid meetings because I may not be able to come in person to all the meetings. And I think it's an important component of what we're doing. Just as, it's been mentioned that it's important to have the in-person option. So I'd like to see both continue to be offered.
And we can respect that. We can do the Zoom and you can be joining in. The other thing is I just saw in the chat room, Michelle Shelley gave us a note that the table of contents was included in the PDF version, but somehow or another did not get put in the binder. So that will be worked on. We'll be taking care of that. And these are some of the, yes, Strat?
Not be excused, I have to make the church meeting too. I have 2 meetings tonight. I'm sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know.
Getting ready for the bazaar.
We'll be there.
I hope so.
Okay. So let's circle back to where we left off. Jamar?
Thank you. The Parks Division. And we have just 3 more. So the Parks Division has the contractual increases, overtime remains flat. Part-time wages saw a decrease. Contracted services saw a $5,000 increase. Conferences and training saw an increase of $150. Maintenance for repair of buildings saw an increase of $4,500 to $30,000. Uniforms saw an increase of $150 to $1,000. General plant supplies remains flat. Botanical supplies saw an increase of $1,200. Medical and surgical supplies saw an increase of $75. And then the minor capital equipment saw an increase of $300. Net increase for the Parks Division is $21,343. Any questions there? Recreation, again, we only cover the OPEB costs for retirees from when it was under the city. Under public property, contractual increases for our rank and file. Then we have overtime remaining flat at $8,000. Part-time wages there, flat at $69,000. Fuel flat at $100,000. Light and power saw an increase of $50,000 to $350,000. Gas and utilities remains flat at $130,000. Rentals and leases saw a $100 increase to $1,600. Contracted services saw an increase of $110,000 to $725,000. Consulting services saw a decrease of $5,000. Repair and equipment for maintenance saw an increase of $19,750. That's brought up to $75,000 for the year. Stadium commission remains flat at $5,000. Maintenance supplies saw a decrease of $9,500 down to $75,000. Uniforms saw an increase to $950. Janitorial supplies saw an increase of $2,000 to $42,000. General plant supplies under public property saw a decrease of $2,500. So it's budgeted at $7,500 for next year. The remaining items are contractual. The net increase for the properties division is $161,250,000 for the year. Overall, for the Public Works Department, their increase over the previous year is $330,979.
And
welcome.
I do have a question, Jamar, or for Stan. One of the discussions that's come up as we are talking about the pagoda is trying to extrapolate the cost of operation from cost, heating, light, et cetera. Is that included under the public property?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it is.
Is there any way to extrapolate out the specific cost for the operations?
There are specific bills, for example, the gas meter, the electric meter. We can talk next week with Patty and Cindy and get specific numbers for you.
Mhm.
We will find that the heating oil will go up this year. Went up last year, but now we're seeing a bump of 40 cents a gallon to 50 cents a gallon this year as well into this winter season.
Yeah, I just think it would be good to have the complete operational cost of the building.
One thing that would be skewed though, if I may, is the building is unoccupied.
Right,
And so that's going to show a lessening heating
Right.
load, a lessening burden upon the building.
Mhm.
We're not going to, and we are also now on the other side of the pagoda. We're now seeing the other things starting to fail that haven't been fixed, as you have pointed out to me on a few occasions in the building.
Mhm. Okay, I just wanted the rest of council to be aware of, that's one of the goals, is to be able to know the true operational costs. I think that's true of a lot of our buildings. What do they cost individually? Because the city has quite a bit of public property. And what's the cost to maintain that? Okay, Johanny?
While you're on that topic, what is the number of public properties that the city owns?
I do not have that number, Jahani. I can grab that for you. I believe it's in terms of even outbuildings that we are still have ownership, but other people control. The Rotary Park, there's a building there, for example, that are somewhat small, but we then have other people running them, or at Bear Park, which we are involved in, or Third and Spruce. I believe we're in the numbers of 60, in rough numbers. And that doesn't necessarily count the properties on Penn Street that need, that is not in our preview. That's more in the CD department is running that operation. We just do the basic maintenance.
I would agree with that. That's a question better asked of the Community Development Department. We'll have that ready for.
Yes.
I think that's a very important question, though, because we have a lot of responsibility for maintenance overall. Okay,
But for clarity, so this is the department, this is the Public Property Division is the one responsible for maintaining all of the city's public properties, regardless of who's in them or not. Is
Yes.
that safe to state?
Cindy Castor does an outstanding job in the day-to-day and forecasting as well, and understanding our libraries per se, correct. We do have various buildings have different cost sharing capabilities as well, but the managing director is absolutely correct. There are some differences in terms of who has final control of what does happen.
Will that then be made clear to us as well, as far as the number of properties and who's responsible for them?
Yes, we can grab that for you. Absolutely, Jahani.
yeah, it's good information.
Regarding liquid fuels, we track the revenue and general expenditures on the other funds tab. That's going to be tab 21. In your budget book. On the spreadsheet, Marcia, it's going to be the other funds tab.
Gotcha.
So we were budgeting.
Sorry, Jamar, to interrupt you, but it's actually 20, FYI, for those that have the binder.
Thank you, Johanny.
we're budgeting $8,484,194 in revenue and expenses for liquid fuels. You can find a breakdown of Fund 35, the liquid fuels projects, at the middle portion of the CIP tab. Most of them are labeled under traffic engineering.
Oh, yes.
Stan, do you want to walk us through at a high level the liquid fuels projects? And then if there are any specific questions from council, we're open to those.
Absolutely. If council would then know this one caveat of our liquid fuels funds, our LFF funds, the city is able to use, not at our discretion, the funding. It has to be under the specific guidelines of PennDOT through the taxing. And for example, we would be allowed to fund lighting at an intersection or at an area, but we would not be able to construct the light poles or do any of the infrastructure work. So that's some odd little caveats. We can do upgrades, but then again, it has to, again, to the lighting and to the cost savings. If everyone is looking at the book now, part of Hancock Road, we have Summit Chase lighting listed as well, and you can see that comes out of the CIP. But we have traffic engineering, Buttonwood, part of that is under there as well. But also the mayor's liquid fuels fund programming that we have been, and everybody's been seeing that we've been paving, that is paid entirely from our liquid fuels fund. So it is the mayor administration's thought that within the next 3 years, there was such a surplus of funding that we're going to get down to essentially $1 million. So in the next 2 to 3 years, so which is a very good thing.
There's also the formatting may look a little bit weird this go round because we wanted to do better with tracking our projects over the history of them. So in this middle section here from row 164 down through 205, we did something a little different with our formatting so that we could better track funding sources and allocations in their out years. And there's more work to be done on that document.
So that's why explanation behind all the formulas in those particular cells.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And we
You
have
may see some projects listed more than one time because they have multiple funding sources.
Gotcha. Yeah, I see that.
Yes, Councilor Cepeda Freitas.
And
Yep.
again, what I'm looking at in my binder and what I'm looking at on the screen, so the binder doesn't say, when I'm looking at the liquid fuels account number, right, it starts with 35. But when I'm looking at my sheet for like liquid fuels expenses, I don't see that code reflected on here.
So what you see on your current screen, I mentioned this is under the CIP tab, so it's going to be towards the back of your, that'll be tab 25.
I have it right
Yeah, okay,
here. I'm looking at it.
okay. So there's not an allocation for each project under each year is one thing of note. Two, I also just mentioned there are still some corrections that need to take place with this section. With that, that's all we have for tonight in terms of the budget. It was the overview. The mayor's office, managing director, counsel, and auditor, along with Public Works, Operations Engineering, and Liquid Fuels.
Okay, just so we're all staying on the same page, Linda will be noting all the questions. What I did want to have clarity on is the next time we meet will still be virtual on Monday. But then the following night, we would be able to meet on the third floor conference room. Am I correct?
As far as I know, yes.
Just
Okay.
one question with that. We do also on the 19th have a conditional use hearing. So I don't know if that's impacted by people from the outside being in then for, prior to our budget meeting. I'm not sure how the dynamics of that'll work with COVID right now. Any thoughts? I mean, we can't really do that upstairs, the conditional use hearing, correct, Linda?
Well, everybody, council could be upstairs. I've invited the representatives from McKnight Street
Right,
virtually already.
so they could be
So-
virtual while we're, okay, good.
Correct, along with
Be able
the
to go from
chairs.
one to the other.
Okay, as long as that works.
Jahani?
Yeah, so what we've covered here this evening on these Excel spreadsheets, when will these be emailed to us? Or are we going to wait on updates before, or corrections, and then they'll be emailed to us? Either way, when should we expect it?
Jamar, and I hadn't understand it, but I just want to hear, Jamar had stated that earlier as far as the updates go.
So the adjustments. I need to think about that and get back to you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No
think one-
worries, but what we
Yeah.
just, I'm so sorry, Marco. But everything that we discussed today that was on this, on your screen, the screen that you shared, Jamal, would that be accessible to us?
No. So this is the master file that we're working in. Okay, so I'll be the only person making adjustments to that. That's not something that I can keep sending you every week. Because so every time I send it to you, I have to hide like a whole lot of stuff. And it's just a time-consuming exercise to do that on a weekly basis. That's a little too much. I need to figure out some sort of frequency. I think every other week we can we can send it to you.
So may I make a request then? I think that whatever's on the agenda that we're gonna discuss, can you email us those particular sheets? Is that possible? Or you can't break it up? Or the things that are hidden, are they, are we, I mean, are we not privy to that information? Is it not public, or is it notes? Like,
It's not
I don't
public
know.
information. It's employee data that really should not be shared.
gotcha.
But just so we're clear, every change that is discussed and it is edited in that master file, it doesn't go anywhere. It stays there. So I'm trying to figure out how to accommodate your request because it sounds like,
So, right, so before the meeting, right, I'm looking at all the line items, like I have notes in my binder, I have notes in my book, but then when we're looking at your Excel spreadsheet, the numbers differ, right, because you've updated them. So then I feel like I'm blind, like I'm Meaning, like, I'm not, like, I'm trying to follow you, but then I can't follow my book where I keep my notes. I'm just trying to figure out what's the best way, the smoothest way of doing this so that we're on the same page, we're understanding the data, and it's the most accurate data.
So the master file is always going to be the most accurate version. To the extent that you can, snap a picture and send me your questions ahead, we can make sure that they're teed up to be answered. I think that's an efficient use of our time.
It's a good idea.
I can certainly do that. Thank you. I can do that.
Yeah. And also having to trust the process to know that we will receive an updated version based on the input that's given. But any questions that you need, I like the idea of noting them, sending a picture of whatever page, and then we're ready to discuss that. I also think it will help when we're meeting in person to clarify those as we're all sitting at the table. But I think we've asked a lot of good questions, and always know that the budget process is a live process that always has adjustments. And so I think people have done a good job of getting through what we did tonight, and we'll be moving ahead. And I just want to preview the agenda for coming up next Monday. We are going to be looking at CD, including, I'm sorry, I'm a week ahead. We're going to be looking at the external audit, and then Public Works, looking at sewers and sewer fund, solid waste and shade tree.
No, that's not, yeah, that is not the most updated version.
Okay. What's the most updated version then?
Hang on a minute. On Monday, we're going to get an update on the chief dangerous intersections from Chief Tornelli.
Okay.
We're going to discuss the council solicitor. Then the budget review is after the public, well, we're meeting after the public hearing. Sewers, sewer fund, retail, solid waste, shade tree, and there's one other thing.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
And then veterans handicap parking,
Okay.
and then the redistricting commission.
Yeah, I was just going on what was on the budget.
Oh, the budget calendar.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah,
going
the
on.
only difference is the external audit was moved to the 25th.
Okay, gotcha. So we're still talking about the same topic, the public works, sewers and sewer fund, retail,
Yeah.
solid, okay.
Just a heads up, Linda, I spoke with Ashley today at PFM, and she thinks they're on the agenda for Monday, the 18th. So you may want to follow up with them.
With who?
PFM,
Oh, I have him rescheduled for early November.
okay.
Okay, is there any other comments for the good of the order? Okay, thank you very much, everybody, then.
Have a
Oh,
good night.
good night.
Good night.
Sweet dreams.
What the devil?